Yes, a 10-mile tempo. Bit intimidating. No one's making me do this except for myself. A 10-mile tempo feels like a pretty good workout in my opinion. I feel like I've been able to execute 10-mile tempos well when I've been training well, when I've been building up well. So again, similar to some of these workouts I've been doing lately that I'm sort of treating as like, okay, are you capable of running X pace for a half marathon? I feel like a 10-mile tempo will be a pretty good indicator of what I am potentially capable of come race day. So that is the goal with this 10-mile tempo. You know, I did a few double-digit plus mile tempos during my last marathon build-up and haven't done a ton of like long tempo runs, long threshold segments, whatever it might be during this training block. Better late than never. We're a few weeks out at this point, about 3 weeks from the actual race. So this will be one of the last like bigger hardcore workouts. The goal is to start around whatever perceived marathon effort would be. So kind of ease into the tempo the first mile to 3 miles. Once we get to sort of the back half of that tempo, try to squeeze down a little bit closer to what a half marathon effort might be. Pretty nice morning for a long, harder effort like this. It's not too incredibly intense of an effort, and I find that when I've been doing a lot of speed work, whether that's back during my 5K training or during recent marathon training, everything a little bit slower feels a little bit easier. So when I've been doing a lot of VO2 max, critical velocity, whatever you want to call it, it always feels like threshold and low threshold marathon effort, tempo effort, all of that feels like it is sort of rising with the tide that, you know, my VO2 max is as well. Just for like mental tough sharpening purposes, I'm not going to cut this short if it starts to go really, really poorly. You know, I've done that in the past when I've maybe had like a 12-mile tempo at like marathon effort on the plan. Things go really bad, I cut it at like 9, maybe 10 miles. We're gonna do the whole entire 10-mile tempo. If it needs to be slowed down a little bit, it needs to be slowed down a little bit, but I'm not planning on getting to anything truly like super, super speedy here. This is more just to build some of that speed endurance. Currently on mile 4 of the warm-up here, running about 7:10-ish mile pace, so not too easy, but still not running really steady either, somewhere in between there. So just making sure legs are not completely asleep by the time we hit the tempo section. So I'm gonna try to take a gel here before I start the 10-mile tempo after 4 miles of warm-up. See how this goes. Currently on mile 6 of this tempo. Started in the 6:30s for the beginning portion. Now we're hovering around 6:20 to 6:15 minute per mile range. So yeah, just trying to lock in, keep it going, catch up afterwards. Tempo is over. Currently shuffling my way through a quick little cool down. That felt like it should have, I would say. I pretty much did exactly what I wanted to do, so I'm not blown away by the effort, and I'm not disappointed in it at all. Just like satisfied with the work I put in, because the plan was to essentially start somewhere in the 6:30s for the first mile or two, and then just gradually knock a second or two off of each mile until I got down to like 6:15-ish, because I don't know, the 6:15 just sort of sounds like on tired legs what my half marathon effort would sort of equate to right now, and that definitely felt like it was true during that run. So felt like a genuine half marathon effort by the end. Felt like I could have sustained it for a few more miles, so hopefully it feels even better come race day here in 3 weeks. But yeah, really happy with that workout and pretty happy with how training went over this past week, but also in recent weeks. There's obviously no doubt that I took a bit of a step back from things over the course of February, but I think that was really an exercise in listening to my body and doing what it needed and giving it what it needed in that moment rather than trying to push the envelope even further, as was kind of the theme of my last marathon training block, where on a regular basis I was doing like almost marathon peak week equivalent levels of workouts on a very regular basis and really pushing my body to its limit when it came to those workouts. And don't get me wrong, that is a recipe for success in the short term, but I think I have been like a case in point when it comes to that not being a recipe for longevity and long-term success, because, by the time the end of January came around, I was feeling completely burnt out from approaching training that way. So I feel good now. I feel excited about running again, especially when it comes to some of this quality work, which is a really good spot to be in as we are 3 weeks out from the race itself. So banked 71.76 miles this week, which was my first time back in the 70 plus mile range since January. About 9 hours of running. Coros said it was my heaviest training load of 2024 so far when it came to a full week of training. So peaking at the right time, hopefully, as we sort of make a bit of a comeback here. And I think it's been overall good because the race predictors, even though, again, I like to sort of take those with a bit of a grain of salt, even though they have been pretty accurate in the past, they seem to think I'm in a decent spot as well. After this past week of training, after that 10-mile tempo workout, which is the best tempo run I've really ever had and one of the better workouts I've had in the past couple months, I sort of have some updated / solidified predictors on the various apps that I use when it comes to running data. So in terms of Coros's predictions, and I'll put both Coros and Stride, I really like Stride's sort of customizability when it comes to race predictions, because for one, it accounts for what your predicted or estimated power rate will equate to pace-wise with all the elevation changes, because you can actually upload specific .fit or .gpx files of your course onto the Stride platform. It will read the elevation profiles in the course as a whole and make its prediction based on that and your past 90 days of training, which I feel like is really comprehensive to a lot of the other predictors I've used in the past. I also think Coros's predictors, with all the data it gathers, is typically pretty close fitness-wise to what I think I'm capable of on my best day. Coros currently says for the half marathon that I am in the 121 realm right now, which, to be honest, that doesn't feel too incredibly intimidating to look at, but at the same time, I think I would have to have a pretty solid day right now to hit 121. Maybe, I'm trying to keep the expectations low here. I think that was a very reasonable time, very reachable time during my past marathon training block when I feel like I was fitter than ever, and that would not have scared me at all. But Coros also seems to think I'm in the best marathon shape right now, which on one hand I feel like could be potentially the case if I happen to get some more long runs and long run specific marathon workouts in. But at the same time, like I know how hard I was working during the past marathon training block, and I know how hard I worked to run that 2:53, and I don't feel like I've been working that hard, that consistently for this half marathon training block. So who's really to say? But I do feel like that could potentially be reachable. Running in the 2:49 range, right at sub 2:50, that feels slightly realistic. So maybe we're gonna get a pretty decent PB in the half here. And then it's funny because usually Stride and Coros, there seems to be at least like a couple minutes of discrepancy between the two. Sometimes it feels like one is overestimating my fitness while the other is underestimating it, or vice versa. And with the Salisbury half marathon course file uploaded into the Stride system with all my training as of late, Stride predicts I could currently run for that course a 121.18, whereas Course is saying I could run a 121.11. So they are within 7 seconds of each other, which is pretty nutty because, again, they're usually on a bit of a different page when it comes to predictions. So regardless, I don't think it's any mystery that I should be able to run a PB for the half marathon regardless, because I have not run a technical, official half marathon PB on an actual course in an actual race in so incredibly long. Last year, really half-hearted training block, was super busy throughout the winter and spring, really didn't put my best out there, was running hurt, was running unhealthy. I really did not feel like race day either after training through the winter and getting a very, very warm and humid spring day was really a recipe for success there. Right now, especially after that tempo, I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot to beat my half marathon PB, which I set in a training run this past fall of 1:25:25. So an hour, 25 minutes, 25 seconds is currently my unofficial half marathon PB, which I set in the middle of an 18-mile marathon long run workout. Should be able to beat that. My Stride, my Coros seems to think I should be able to beat that. Hopefully I can. What do you think? Think these race predictors are worth putting any real belief into? Let me know down in the comments. But solid week of training. I've put a couple solid 65 to 70 mile weeks together here in the past couple weeks. I feel like I'm in a better spot right now than I was, even a month or two ago. So feeling good, feeling fit. Got peak week coming up here, which will conclude with me pacing my brother to a hopeful PB for his half marathon. It'll be more of like a steady effort for me to close out the week, so I'll make sure to get a workout in here coming up. But yeah, it's been a very interesting topsy-turvy up and down training block, but I definitely feel like we are in a much better place for chasing after a half marathon PB this spring than we were last spring. So stay tuned to find out, and we'll catch up soon. Peace.